I'm screwed. Question is, what level of screwed we are. For those of you who've been paying attention, this is my Volkswagen Passat wagon that unfortunately is a little low, and it had an argument with a railroad spike a couple of weeks ago, which it lost. And unfortunately, railroad spike punctured my aluminum oil pan there and evacuated all the oil out of my car. Rich then came and got me, which is Rich's part-time job, is getting me when I'm stranded. So today we're going to do some questionable repairing to see if we can get this oil pan sealed up to the point where we can put oil in it and see whether or not the motor and or turbo survived my couple hundred feet of absolutely zero oil pressure. There is definitely some opportunity for terrible damage inside this thing with running it with no oil in it, especially on the turbo, and there's nothing in it. I guess the idea is, y'all ever heard of JB Weld? You get the idea. So I think Rich is going to try to build us a little area here. It is also right next to where the drain plug is, which is great. Yeah, this couldn't possibly be bad. We'll see. It could have been worse. It could have broke the sensor off.
Yeah?
It could have broken over on the drain line.
You could have just not went down that road.
I didn't have a choice. There was a truck that was in the way.
That's true.
Believe me, if I didn't have to go that way, I wouldn't have gone that way.
Four-wheeling.
We're also going to just pretend like the parts that came off of this are just fell out.
Doesn't matter, they're not going anywhere. Glasses.
You going to death wheel this thing open? Oh dear. I'm just going to go ahead and put this disclaimer. This is not what you would call a proper repair. This is not something we're officially doing, nor would we do for a customer. This is my own stuff. We are Appalachian Engineering a repair. The biggest question is going to be whether or not this engine and turbo are fine. So if it holds oil, at least for the time being, and everything seems like it's fine, then we can move to the next step, which would be actually putting a new oil pan in this thing. Unfortunately, that's a big step because it's dropped the subframe to be able to do it. So it's like 6 to 7 hours. And we'd like to know that the health of the engine is fine before we go through that process. So that is why we are Appalachian Engineering this at the moment. Although temporary fixes can be some of the most permanent fixes.
Some are oftentimes permanent fixes, yes. Yes, that is true. You don't have to hold it anymore.
Get your whacking mallet. finessed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Gotta do what you gotta do, right? Just gonna goober it up on this.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover the whole thing and then put it up on there.
Alright.
Yeah, the side that faces the oil pan needs to be completely dull, stuffed in 2 directions, or 3.
Multiple directions.
And then do the same on the oil pan. Probably do it on the oil pan with an old one first.
You hit it with some brake cleaner.
And then we'll hit it with some brake clean, and then we'll use that one. I'll polish your whole engine with it, I guess, if you want. If you're bored.
Not really.
Don't have that kind of time, right?
Not really. I got a bunch of other shit I've broken that I need to fix. One of the other honestly interesting parts about this whole process is this motor's got like 200,000 miles on it, and I would imagine those bearings are probably the original bearings. I would also say the turbo is probably the original turbo that's in this thing. So they've got a lot of wear on them anyway. That's one of the moments where this really gets to be kind of a questionable repair. Is if it's 6 hours to be able to pull the subframe out and do it oil pan, it's got a 200,000 mile motor in it. How much money and time and energy do you put into it? How much money and time and energy do you put into it versus just going through a total rebuild of the engine? And is it really worth putting it?
200,000 miles. This is a throwaway car already. So.
Yeah, so that's where this is important. And it's a really good little daily driver. Super functional. Although so is my Vibe.
Except when it has a hole in the hood.
Yeah, hasn't been very functional for the last 3 weeks. But the little Pontiac Vibe has stepped up into daily driver status and has been fantastic. So
That's enough.
clean enough for bonding purposes. You can see underneath, this car is actually surprisingly clean. There's a tiny little bit of rust up here in the front. Well, for an Ohio car. But underneath is actually really, really nice. It's not badly beat up. It's a really nice example of one of these cars, especially for the fact it's got 200,000 miles on it. Yes, it's got Bilsteins on it. Yes, it's got lowering springs on it. But it's a pretty solid car. So that's why I really want to do what I can to get this thing back on the road. All right, what is this stuff we're using?
Alumabond.
Alumabond. And this is a 2-part epoxy.
Yep.
This was like you said, 30 bucks.
I think it's $36.
Okay.
Mixed 1-to-1.
Okay.
It is a hardened catalyzed product. They say you can machine it afterwards. Mix for 3 minutes.
Paint stick.
Some thick, gooey stuff, actually.
So we could retexture it so that nobody could tell that we patched our oil pan.
Yeah, we'll just put a layer of this over top of it and grind it all out.
Like re-spackle the wall.
Spackle it all over the top.
No one will know.
No one will know. It will be like it never happened.
And then the set time on this was
60-minute work time, which is a lot longer than I thought it would be. Cured to machining ability in 5 hours, I think.
working time of 60 minutes. You're not going to be able to probably read that. Do not touch the repair for an hour. completely cured in 4 to 5 hours. Once cured, aluminum bomb can be drilled, machined, or painted. Temperature resistant up to 150 degrees. How hot does engine oil get? Hopefully less than that.
It's not 150 degrees.
Or 250 degrees.
250.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Used mostly for HVC applications and repairs. Used partially for engine repairs. It's in the very, very fine print. Should be fine. Hey, it's made in the USA.
Yeah.
Look at that. We do make things here.
Who knew?
So you're thinking just putty the whole back?
Yeah. I should have mixed more.
You want to add some to it?
We have plenty of working time, so.
I guess at this point in time, for those of you who don't know what happened to this car, I was on my way back from lunch and got redirected because a truck had high-sided over one of our infamous roundabouts around here. So I had to take a back road that I wasn't normally going to take, and I caught a railroad spike that was sticking up about 1 inch right yonder in the oil pan. Now, at this point in time, most of you are going to say, well, the railroad company should pay for that. I agree with you. The railroad company should pay for that. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. I talked with my insurance company, and they basically said that you're screwed. I talked to the people at the railroad, and they basically said that you're screwed. I could go through some paperwork and go through all the jumps and loops and hoops and go through that. And eventually, at some point in time, I might get them to pay my insurance deductible. But if I do it through my insurance, it becomes a collision, which I don't want to do because I didn't technically collide with anything. Although technically, I guess I did collide with a railroad spike. So that's why we're doing this. Otherwise, I guess if I claim this on my insurance, it would probably total out the car, which I really want to avoid. Make more putty.
Without wearing it.
At least it doesn't quicken like a super glue or something.
Right, like the epoxy glues that I use. I'm trying.
Careful. You got it on your pocket there. No.
So
Or you'll end up like
I want to get
Silverman.
it on the pan and the other surface, because if you watch, it will not stick initially until you kind of rub it around and get all the dust and sanding bits off of it.
And also not aluminum bond my drain plug in.
We'll just glue that in there. It's all right.
It's the last oil change it'll ever need.
Last one it's ever gonna get.
Looking less.
This is looking less temporary and more permanent for personal use.
I mean, a little bit of aluminium paint in this thing. This might look perfect. All right, so put some tension on this and then leave it alone. Looks pretty good.
It's looking pretty good, actually.
Okay, so wait for 4 or 5 hours and then we'll put some Earl in it and see what happens. So that'll be now. Well, as you can see by the change of my clothing, it is the following day. We checked yesterday around 6:30, which would have been 4 hours of setup time, and the stuff still felt pretty squishy. I wouldn't call it soft, but squishy. Seems like we're good now. Everything seems like it's set up pretty well. And again, this is a temporary fix, and we just want to make sure that this thing holds oil and that the bearings and the turbo are okay. So some 530, put it in the belly, and I will go ahead and pull the oil filter off this thing as well. Go ahead and do an Earl change. Toss some 530 in this thing and turn the key and see what happens. Wish me luck. Don't make a mess, Austin. Don't make a mess. All right, well, so far no leaks. She's got a belly full of Earl. That's a good sign. Let her back down. Let's crank it over. Well, this is that point in the time in the show where we take bets. What do you think? Am I lucky enough that this engine and turbo survived? That's some kind of ugly sounds at the start there. Well, the good news is there's no oil light. We do have a check engine light, so we'll see what that is, but you know, it's a Volkswagen, so check engine light's pretty much always on. Let's see what that says, but so far, so good. Well, there's no bad bearing sounds down here. That's a good thing. Got no oil drippage, no seepage. That's a good thing. Obviously, there's oil all the way back through this way from when it punched through the hole, so it threw the oil that way, but I don't see any active leak. I think we're good. So the biggest worry I have left is the turbo. Turbos really do not like being oil starved, and they really do not like being shut off when hot with no oil in them. So I guess we drive it, see what happens. No unusual sounds. Check engine light, by the way, was a vapor canister. I've had that code about 1 billion times. It comes and goes as it pleases. Well, let's give her a little test drive and see what happens. Roundy here. Kick it down a gear, give it the beans. Seems to accelerate fine. Well, folks, it seems, at least at the moment, I dodged a bullet. May have not dodged a railroad spike. I dodged a bullet. Turbo seems to be working okay. Engine seems to be fine. Now, we did leave this sitting in the backyard through numerous storms with an open oil pan for 3 weeks or so, which is less than fantastic. But hopefully we survived all of that and everything will be fine. I will pull the oil out of this thing probably not too far from now to make sure that there's nothing catastrophic looking like in the oil, and to get whatever schmutz and stuff that's still in there, maybe some stuff that's in the pan, or anything that crawled up in the engine bay, and I'll get that out of it quickly. But I want to put some miles on it and make sure that everything's good to go, but I think we're good. So the little Volkswagen Passat wagon has survived. Now, a next question would be, I do have my Nissan Sentra up for sale. That's gonna go hopefully here in the next week or so. I've got another car going up for sale right after that, and then maybe either the Passat wagon or the Vibe GT will go up for sale, because I've got too many toys and not enough time to play with them all. So, I don't know. Do I put this one up or do I put the Vibe up? I like them both. Anyways, guys, thanks for being here. Welcome to Automotive Adventures with Austin. This is my own little corner of the YouTube internets, where I work on my own projects and nights, weekends, and evenings, and sometimes during business hours. I appreciate you being here. Have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.